And so in this video, I'm going to go through each of the steps of the design thinking process, but rather than an explanation of what each is for, I want to show you some examples of tasks that you can get your students to use in class to really highlight that particular feature. So I think it is a good idea to start with the reason why. And I guess we're trying to unlock students' creative problem-solving abilities. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to use design thinking. And what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to show you through this video a series of activities that students can do to learn that process. So I guess we're all on a journey. Some of us just want some tasks to use in class. Some of us may want to deliver a whole unit based on design thinking, whereas others might have the privilege of being able to design a whole year-long course around the design thinking process. So essentially, what is it? Well, it's a process to get from an idea to an actual product, service, or even something as awesome as a... So what happens when you ask a group of teachers to describe the design process? Well, you actually get a few different varieties, but they all generally start with a user and this idea of testing. So the most common process that most people are familiar with is this hexagon iconed design process. There are 5 stages of empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And there are specific things that happen at each of those stages, but I found that it was quite difficult to try and get my students to understand some words that were often unfamiliar with them, particularly emphasize and ideate. So I've been using John Spencer's launch cycle, and I find that that's a lot easier for students to understand about each steps in the process. So rather than emphasize, he calls it look, listen, and learn. Rather than ideate, he talks about navigating ideas. And so for each of those steps in the process, we've got a task that the students can do. So for the first step, when we want students to really understand the problem, there's the storyboard task. So just tell a story of someone who's experiencing that problem. Have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And through that, hopefully the students will develop a better understanding of the causes of the problem. And it may lead them on to one of the next parts about asking questions and the 5 whys. So great video explaining the 5 whys process. And it's just trying to get to the root cause of the problem. And after they've done their research, we now need to get them to decide on an idea that they're going to take further and prototype. And a brilliant activity for that is the Crazy 8s, where they've got 40 seconds to quickly sketch an idea, make some notes before moving on to the other idea. And it really forces them to under pressure, maybe think outside of the box, get some other ideas they may not have considered earlier. After they've had all those ideas, they can label them. And here's a pretty good way of getting them to categorize how useful those different ideas are going to be. Is it a now idea, which is an existing solution, it's easy to implement? Is it a how idea, impossible to implement, even though it's original? And we're really looking for those wow ideas, original idea that is going to be easy to implement. After they've decided on the idea, we want them to prototype. So they make a sketch first, they identify parts of their sketch, what are the different features, what are the different functions, and then they're actually going to create it. And that's the fun part. The room gets fairly chaotic when you first look at it. There's kids with glue guns and knives and scissors, and they're making things out of cardboard and all sorts of old bits and pieces. But I think it's often where the real learning happens, where students actually get a better idea through the process of making their prototype. You don't actually need a lot of equipment to establish a makerspace in your classroom. Bits of paper are fine, cardboard and glue guns, and just random bits of rubbish that might otherwise go into landfill. An old box of tools. It's quite surprising what kids can make given fairly meagre resources. And then we come to user testing. So the student will sit down opposite another student and go through a peer feedback process, and they want to find out effectively what things were liked about their idea, what the other person wondered about, and if they had any suggestions for improvement. And after they've taken on board those improvements, they've highlighted and fixed, then it is time to launch to an audience. And one of the best tools that I've found for students to create their launch videos is Flipgrid. So easy enough to sign up. You can organize your courses into groups, and then within each group, you can have a range of these topics. So it's a pretty slick user interface. And what the students can do is go into their particular topic. You can give them instructions and they can record directly using their webcam or upload a video. The great thing about this tool is they can watch and comment on each other's videos.
Unreliable and unpleasant buses for the commuters of Tauranga.
What's up, guys? I'm introducing the Squid Jet 1, a state-of-the-art piece of technology that will enable passengers to jet through the water while hugging a rail.
Look at this.
So there you go. There's a very quick tour through the activities that I use to teach design thinking. Feel free to make a copy of the slides, and you're more than welcome to check out my resources on design thinking on the website link below. If you've got any great ideas, feel free to drop a link in the comments below.